For hundreds of years, while modern houses rot, crack, swell, and collapse within a few decades, medieval wooden structures across Europe, Scandinavia, and Asia have silently stood untouched by rain, snow, insects, mold, and time itself. And the most terrifying part is that this was not an accident, not luck, and not magic. It was a forgotten system so simple yet so powerful that once you understand it, you will never look at modern wood the same way again. Because medieval builders knew something we chose to forget. Wood does not rot because of water. It rots because we trap water inside it, and this single misunderstanding has destroyed more buildings in the last 100 years than all medieval wars combined. In ancient times, trees were not rushed from forest to factory in days. They were felled during specific seasons when sap was lowest, often in winter when the tree's internal sugars, the real food for fungi and insects, were at their weakest. Then those logs were left to rest, sometimes submerged in flowing water for months or even years, not to weaken them, but to leach out remaining sugars and starches, starving rot before it could even begin. And after that came the real secret. Wood was never sealed the way we seal it today. Medieval craftsmen didn't suffocate timber with plastic paints, synthetic varnishes, or chemical coatings that lock moisture inside like a coffin. Instead, they used breathable protection: pine tar, linseed oil, beeswax, wood ash lye, fish oil, and natural resins that repelled rain from the surface but allowed internal moisture to escape, meaning the wood could breathe, dry, and heal itself naturally, a concept modern construction almost completely ignores. Scandinavian churches coated in pine tar still repel water after 800 years. Viking ships soaked in tar and oil survived oceans and ice. Japanese temples built without a single nail still stand after earthquakes and monsoons because their wood can move, dry, and age without being poisoned by modern shortcuts. And here is the shocking truth nobody tells you. Most modern waterproof wood treatments actually accelerate rot, because once a tiny crack forms, and it always does, water enters but can never escape, turning your expensive treated timber into a slow-rotting sponge, while medieval wood shed water, dried fast, and denied fungi the dark, damp prison it needs to survive. This ancient knowledge wasn't written in textbooks. It was passed from master to apprentice, from shipbuilder to carpenter, from monk to mason. And when industrialization arrived, speed replaced wisdom, profit replaced patience, and chemicals replaced understanding. And suddenly, buildings were no longer meant to last centuries. They were meant to last warranties. Yet today, this medieval secret still works exactly as it did 1,000 years ago. Modern scientists now confirm what ancient builders already knew. Remove sugars, control moisture, let wood breathe, protect without sealing, and timber becomes one of the most durable materials on Earth, stronger over time, resistant to rot, insects, and decay. And the reason this knowledge feels hidden is because it threatens an entire industry built on replacement, repair, and planned failure. So the next time you see a medieval bridge, a Viking church, or a 1,000-year-old temple standing proudly against storms that destroy modern houses, remember this: our ancestors were not primitive. They were precise, patient, and deeply intelligent. And the real mystery is not how their wood survived for centuries, but why we ever stopped listening to them. And if you think this is just an old legend, rather than living science, consider how medieval builders never allowed wood to touch the ground directly, lifting structures onto stone plinths, denning roofs with deep overhangs so rain would fall far from the walls, and shaping joints in ways that forced water to drain instead of sit, meaning they were working with gravity, airflow, and evaporation rather than fighting them, while modern construction traps moisture behind flat roofs, sealed joints, and synthetic membranes, and then wonders why mold appears. Medieval carpenters read wood grain like a language, knowing which side would face rain, which would face wind, and which could carry weight, choosing dense heartwood that naturally resisted rot and insects and keeping vulnerable sapwood protected or removed entirely, while modern mills mix everything together for speed and try to hide the consequences with chemicals. And this is where failure begins. And this knowledge was not limited to Europe. Japan's ancient technique of yakisugi, where wood is carefully charred on the surface, creates a carbon layer that repels water, resists insects, and protects timber for centuries without toxic paint or constant maintenance. A method so old its origin is lost to time, yet its results still stand today. When all these examples are connected, an uncomfortable truth emerges: wood was never a weak material. We simply started using it incorrectly, trying to cheat nature's rules with shortcuts. And nature responded with rot, mold, termites, endless repairs and constant replacement. Medieval builders never saw time as an enemy. They treated it as a partner, allowing their structures to age, dry and strengthen, while modern buildings grow sick with every passing year. And this is why when scientists analyze ancient wooden structures today, they find no lost magic, only a deeply logical system based on moisture control, material honesty and patience, a system that still works perfectly if we are willing to relearn it, because the true secret was never just pine tar or oil, but a mindset every medieval builder understood instinctively, that anything alive must be allowed to breathe, not be suffocated, and when wood is protected, with understanding, instead of imprisoned by modern shortcuts, it can defeat water, insects, and time itself for centuries. And this is where the story becomes even more unsettling, because once you realize how simple and repeatable this knowledge is, you begin to see that its disappearance was not caused by ignorance, but by convenience. Because medieval construction was slow by design, it respected drying time, seasoning cycles, weather patterns, and even lunar calendars in some cultures. Whereas modern construction is driven by deadlines, contracts, and quarterly profits, forcing green, sugar-rich wood to be sealed inside buildings before it has even finished becoming wood. And when that trapped moisture inevitably turns into decay, the blame is placed on the material instead of the method. Ancient builders also understood that maintenance was not failure, but survival. A light reapplication of oil or tar every few decades was enough to renew protection, while modern systems promise maintenance-free solutions that quietly fail behind walls until damage becomes catastrophic. And this promise of permanence through chemicals is perhaps the greatest lie ever sold to builders, because nothing organic survives suffocation, yet medieval systems embraced renewal, allowing structures to be repaired, adjusted, and refreshed without destroying the whole. Even insects played a role in this forgotten balance, because properly seasoned and breathable wood simply does not attract termites or beetles the way sugar-rich, damp modern lumber does, meaning ancient builders didn't need poisons to defend their structures. They removed the conditions insects required to exist, a strategy far more effective than extermination. And when you step back and look at the broader pattern, from Viking ships to stave churches, from Roman bridges to Japanese temples, from mountain barns to desert dwellings, you begin to see that the true waterproofing secret was never a single substance but a system, one that aligned material choice, climate awareness, structural design, and long-term thinking into a unified philosophy. And once that philosophy was broken, no amount of paint, sealant, or chemical treatment could replace it. This is why today, as architects quietly return to breathable construction, natural oils, charred wood, ventilated facades, and passive moisture control, they are not innovating but rediscovering, walking back along a path our ancestors already mapped centuries ago. And the reason this feels revolutionary is because modern society has forgotten what durability truly means, mistaking newness for strength and speed for intelligence, while the medieval world understood that the greatest technology is not what fights nature, but what cooperates with it, patiently, intelligently, and honestly. Because when wood is allowed to dry, breathe, move, and age as it was always meant to, water ceases to be an enemy, time becomes an ally, and a material we now call fragile quietly proves that it was never meant to last decades, but centuries. And the final realization, the one that quietly changes how you see every modern house, fence, deck, and wooden roof you have ever touched, is that medieval builders were not trying to make wood eternal. They were trying to make it honest, because they understood that decay only begins when wood is forced to lie about its nature, when it is told to stay dry while being soaked from within, to stay rigid while needing to move, to remain sealed while desperately needing air. And once you see this, you understand why their buildings did not fight rain but guided it, did not fear moisture but controlled it, did not poison insects but removed the reason insects came at all. Modern construction teaches us to overpower materials. Medieval construction taught materials how to survive. And that single difference explains why a 1,000-year-old timber beam can still ring solid under a hammer, while a 20-year-old treated post crumbles in your hands. And this is why the secret still works today, not because we lack technology, but because we abandoned patience, observation, and respect for natural systems. And the moment we choose to slow down, season wood properly, design for drainage and airflow, protect surfaces without sealing soles, and accept maintenance as part of longevity rather than a flaw, We step back into a lineage of builders who understood that true waterproofing is not about blocking water at all costs, but about ensuring it never has the chance to stay. And when that principle is restored, wood stops being disposable, buildings stop aging like machines, and architecture once again becomes something meant to outlive us, silently standing through storms, winters, and centuries, carrying a forgotten message from the medieval world into our own, that durability is not manufactured, it is cultivated. And once this understanding settles in, you begin to notice how quietly revolutionary it really is, because it challenges the entire modern belief that progress always means adding more layers, more products, more chemicals, when in reality the medieval solution was subtraction, removing excess moisture, removing trapped sugars, removing design mistakes, removing the arrogance that humans can outsmart nature without consequences. And this is why their methods scale across climates, from frozen Nordic coasts to humid Asian forests, because they were based on universal physical laws, not brand-specific formulas. Water only destroys wood when it is allowed to stay. Fungi only survive where darkness and dampness are trapped. Insects only thrive where food is abundant and conditions are stable. And medieval builders disrupted all three without ever needing a warning label. And that is why even today, when these principles are applied to modern projects, ventilated walls, raised foundations, breathable oils, natural finishes, intelligent detailing, the results are so shocking they feel impossible. Wood that silvers beautifully instead of rotting, beams that harden over time instead of softening, structures that age with dignity instead of decaying in secret. And perhaps the most uncomfortable truth of all is that this knowledge was never lost. It was ignored, pushed aside because it could not be rushed, standardized, or mass-marketed, because patience does not scale easily and wisdom does not fit into plastic containers. And yet here we are, centuries later, slowly rediscovering what medieval hands already knew through experience, failure, and observation. And the reason this story matters now more than ever is because we are standing at a crossroads, where resources are shrinking, waste is exploding, and the idea of buildings that must be replaced every few decades is no longer sustainable. And in that moment, the medieval secret stops being history and becomes a warning and an invitation. Slow down, let materials speak, work with nature instead of against it. And remember that the most powerful technologies are often the ones we left behind, waiting quietly for us to be ready to listen again.